Hey guys, Youngblood with you for another episode of The Inbox, and in this episode, I believe we're answering questions for the 6th time. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and just jump on into it. Jacko BK with a bunch of numbers says, when can we play this game and how to download it? If you're getting this video now, the game is actually in a free flight mode, so if you don't actually own the game, you can download it after creating an account on robertspaceindustriescom and actually give it a shot. You got a kind of a handful of ships that you can play with. Just know that we're in alpha and you're going to be limited to kind of dogfighting an arena commander or getting out in the persistent universe in our little sandbox test bed. He also asked, I guess I should answer this question, when can we play the game? If you're talking about the real full release, I believe Squadron 42, the campaign, is going to be out towards the end of the year. As far as the persistent universe is concerned, it's just going to continue to develop from here. So it's really hard to say that beta is going to happen on this date or we're going to get additional systems on this date. Those are kind of hard questions to answer, but those are going to be coming. And I guess I kind of answered the next question you asked was, I want to know when we'll be able to visit other solar systems in this persistent universe. That's going to be continually added. We know one of the things that's being added pretty quickly is going to be the Nyx system. Now, how that's going to work probably in the short term is we take our hangar to the landing zone on Nyx. In the longer term, we'll have wormholes and stuff that we can actually jump to, which is going to kind of open up that persistent universe that we've talked about. So I think that's going to happen just over time organically as the material is ready, but I would expect to see that probably in some form or fashion being able to get to another system within the next couple of months. Paul Fitzgerald says, thanks again for all the vids. You're welcome. Where's the best place to share SC peripheral and configuration settings? People are trying out all kinds of stuff. He blames me. Actually, he thanks me, but I take it as blaming for buying 2 tablets that are being mailed to his house. It seems like the community needs a nice hub. Yes, there's a couple different places where you can kind of share this stuff. Reddit tends to be my go-to, r/star citizen. But you can also do things like on the actual official forums. There's a lot of things on there. So, for example, there's a post on that Rocket Power Grid thing that I did. There's a probably 20-something page thread from Third about his power grid, and he kind of updates it and shares and takes community feedback. So that's a really good kind of centralized location where people can do that. Maybe even on like the Star Citizen Discord channels and stuff, but really the official forums is probably going to be your best bet. Or if you start a Reddit thread. The one thing that with Reddit though is it's not going to be ongoing or long term, so it's not like somebody's going to stumble upon it and reply to it. It may happen, but it's going to be very infrequent. Something on the forums then lends itself to actually being searched for and having people reply to it in an ongoing fashion. So that's probably where I would point you to. Rogue Gaming says, hey STL, I got another question for you. Will you be able to own space stations in game and maybe some sort of mining profile or platform or oil refinery on asteroids? So I don't think we're ever going to necessarily, well, I shouldn't say ever. In the shorter term, I don't think we're ever going to be able to own a station or own, an asteroid or something like that. I think you're going to be able to take temporary ownership over it through force. If you're the dominant faction that's on that space station, nobody's going to want to really mess with you unless they want to take you over. And then you fight, and whoever wins gets to kind of keep the station. I think we're going to kind of see that sort of mechanic as far as like space and systems in space. Large organizations may try and lock down a system. We may also see that players try and take ownership over a station or a certain planet. But ultimately, that's going to be challenging for a couple of reasons. One is going to be time zones. Unless you've got people all over the country or all over the world, it's going to be really hard to keep a large enough force online to help you maintain that ownership for an extended period of time. In addition to that, remember, players are only ever going to be 10% of the persistent universe. 90% is going to be NPCs. So if the NPCs want to take advantage of you, you are going to be outnumbered. It's just how it works. Now, how that fits into the instance system is going to be another thing. If an instance supports, let's say, 200 ships, are we going to say that you could technically have all 200 ships as real players in that instance? Maybe. Or is it going to be 200 ships, 10% of that ends up being 20, so you can have 20 ships in there, and there can be 180 NPCs in there. We need more details on how that sort of thing is going to happen to talk about large scale, but knowing that there are plans to have like organization hangars, and there has been conversations about additional larger scale things. I think it's going to happen eventually, but probably not in the short term. Starducks, I guess that's how you say that, says, first, your videos are nice, thank you. Second, what is there to do in the game at the moment? Except for that arena commander and a few missions, is there anything else to do in game? So with that, there's a couple different things you can do, and you nailed the primary ones. There's Arena Commander, but Arena Commander is more than just Battle Royale. There's also Squadron Battle, there's also Capture the Core, there's also Racing, there's also Free Flight. There's a lot of different things that you can do in kind of the closed environment. Outside of that, through Port Alizar at Crusader, you're actually able to then take on missions. You can just fly around and test things out and kind of interact with other players. You can do missions. You can kind of make your own missions where you try and, pick up somebody. And we're starting to see players do that a little bit more. Like, somebody goes to get a weapon at Security Port Korea, and their ship gets blown up. So they put into chat, hey, I need to pick up at this place. Some jerk blew up my ship. That person then jumps in, tries to kill the enemy, and then picks them up and takes them to a place. You could easily respawn, but players are trying to make more out of it and trying to kind of stretch the potential and kind of see what it's going to be like in the persistent universe. So you're limited overall, but you do have your imagination to kind of help extend the real benefit there. You can also kind of explore. For example, you can go to Yella and kind of just fly around the asteroid field, and occasionally you'll come across things like a derelict that you can kind of get in. But for the most part, you've got the general idea of what you can do. It's just imagine if you're maximizing what you're able to do in the test beds that we have. You also ask if I know if they're going to do a server wipe before launch. Yes, I believe they're going to do a server wipe. We're going to get into alpha, and we're going to be in alpha without really anything. So you're going to start fresh there. I guess we're in alpha in a way. So, we get through alpha. Let's say they put in some currency system. You can earn ships or something like that. Once we get to beta, you're probably going to start from scratch. You're going to go through beta, and then once beta's done, you're probably going to start from scratch when we go to launch. You should count on server wipes. There may be something that allows you to kind of carry over, but they're not going to want to let a lot of these early adopters get a huge head start over the people that are going to buy at release. And then finally you say, is there a way to get... Oh, no, I already answered your question. Okay, there you go. Zach Saad says, question. You talked about your Planet Express crew group company in your hangar tour video, mentioning that your company will have 3 groups within it: exploration, military, and mercantile. Would piracy fit into any of those categories in your organization? Just to clarify real quick, exploration, military, and mercantile, those are kind of our core, I guess, mechanics. Between those, we have other things that we're going to be, supporting. So, like in the military, between that and exploration, there's things like scouting, or in the mercantile, you could maybe even have things that then split off between like transport and mining. It's not as simple as it sounds. Those are just kind of our 3 general areas, and there's really more to it. And that's going to be ever evolving as we get more information about the game. But as far as piracy goes, we are not planning on supporting piracy at this time. And the reason for that is that the reputation system seems to be very definite, and there seems to be a lot of plans to make sure that if you aren't acting according to the law, you're going to pay for it in some way. So as an organization, we've really decided to make the decision that we're not going to support illegal activities because that in some way could have a negative impact on other people. So let's say I'm a good guy. I cooperate. I'm not a pirate. I'm not a murderer. I'm just a transporter and doing the right things. But my buddy Zach, who is a total dick to the rest of the players out there, and I know I'm kind of kidding, piracy is a necessary part of the game, but if he harasses other players and gets a crappy reputation and he's on board my Starfarer, if the police come and then say, hey, Youngblood, you've got a known criminal on your ship, we're either going to kill you or come on board and take him. Well, then I'm in a weird position where I have to decide if I'm going to give up my friend or if I'm going to then get a shitty reputation myself. And that's something we don't want to put people into. And who knows how aggressive people may be. There may be people that come in and say, okay, Zach has a really big warrant on his head. I'm willing to get a warrant on my head to collect him by killing Youngblood and in turn Zach. So that's a weird mechanic and something we need to figure out. But one thing that we've talked about was kind of creating an alt accounts to where you could explore those types of things. And I've toyed with the idea of having an alt account as well, just so I can kind of make videos on the darker side of the game without having to risk my overall real reputation. So the short answer is no. All right, got some water. Douglas has a long last name. That is long. Says, I was wondering what you think about the 890 jump. That's kind of a interesting question. I think the jump in theory is a really nice ship. I think it's very versatile. I think it's really big. I think it's really nice to look at. It's got the nice point defense system. The interior is luxurious. I wonder how effective it's going to be as opposed to, I don't know, let's say the frigate that comes out, or, as opposed to like an Idris, or it lives on the interesting line of borderline capital ship. It's significantly bigger and more expensive than something like a Constellation, but it's also significantly smaller and cheaper than something like an Idris. It's right in that middle area. So I think the 890 Jump's going to be an awesome ship. It's absolutely one that I want to have in my fleet, but how I would end up using it, I'm not sure yet. Chillin' with Smitty, or Wit Smitty, says, hey, Youngblood, I love the vids. Thank you, Smitty. You've thanked people in the past for supporting the channel. What does that actually mean? Can we help in some way? So when I say that, I really mean it in a couple different ways. There's, in its most basic fashion, people watching my videos, giving thumbs up, that's a huge support to me. My videos get recommended in more places when people actually like the videos and watch them. The higher view count helps, not to mention I make money off of the advertising revenue. In addition to that, subscribers help a lot because the higher your subscriber count is, it also kind of gives more notoriety to your channel. And then past that, we can talk about being more a proactive supporter. There's people that actually go out and say, hey, I've got a buddy that is wanting to get into Star Citizen. I'm going to show them STLYoungblood's videos because I think he's going to enjoy them or he's going to get something from them. That's kind of another way. And then on a different level, there's the people that are kind of financially supporting the channel. There's people like I've got the Patreon channel that's set up. And if you guys are interested in donating, there's always a link in the video description and in the off of the channel banner. But I kind of actually put a little bit more thought into the Patreon page recently, actually at the advice of Tactical Advance. But I wanted to put some goals out there so people kind of see like what I want to do, and that I'm not just kind of taking this money and taking the wife out to dinner or something like that. There's different things that I plan on doing that can be kind of cost prohibitive. Things like, creating a second account so I can actually play as a pirate. That's a pretty low-level goal. Other ones are like upgrading hardware. If I want to continue to drive up the quality of videos, that involves upgrading my hardware to be able to do that. So that's kind of the other side. There's like the emotional support, there's the actual like sharing of information, and then there's the financial support. So those are kind of the three buckets that I would say the support comes in. And I appreciate all three. Solanus Hugaslot, messed that up, Hugs a lot, has a question about the fine line of risk versus reward. I think some people got several ships to guard their main cargo hauler through space, manning them with NPCs. My question is if this will still be profitable, or will people need to abandon a lot of NPC escorts to turn a decent profit on their hauling? So with that, I absolutely think that it's going to be profitable. If you've got a ship that's large enough to where you actually are going to need the escorts, then I think it is going to be profitable. Now, if we're saying that you're taking a Gladius to escort you in your freelancer and you're hauling a bunch of grain, well, that may not be a huge payout to then all of a sudden you're getting into a situation where it may not be worth the money of actually bringing the NPC along. But take that same situation and let's say you're hauling a bunch of gold, you've got a lot more risk because you've paid for that gold up front. And then on top of that, if you lose it, then you're out altogether. But when you sell, you also are going to get a higher profit if you're making a smart selling decision. Now, one thing to consider is, and I think we learned this lesson in Elite Dangerous, it's all about supply and demand. Just because you're carrying gold doesn't mean you're going to make more money. If you buy grain for $30 and you can sell grain for $50, well, let's say $60. That's like an increase of 50%. That's 2 times what you paid for it. But let's say you buy gold for $1,500, but it ends up selling for $300. That's still the same profit margin there. Now, the dollar amount ends up being higher, but there's other factors you need to consider. So gold more expensive items aren't always going to be better than less expensive items. It's about where can you sell at the highest profit, and that margin is what's going to be the difference maker. So those are the situations that you need to think through as far as deciding if the escort needs to come along or not. If you're bringing something like a whole sea, you're absolutely going to want an escort, and paying the NPC is going to be worthwhile, especially since with the amount of cargo you're carrying, the chances of you being able to turn a higher profit is significantly better. And then said, follow-up question, knowing that pirates will anticipate this, what will be the best preemptive countermeasure to avoid piracy? Bring friends. The escort is a deterrent. If you're there on a whole sea and you've got 2 gladiuses protecting you, or there's a whole sea in the same sector with nobody, guess who's getting pirated? It's not you. So the deterrent is the number one thing. You want something that makes people think twice about actually attacking you. Other than that, also making sure that you're taking smart routes. If it doesn't cut into your profit margin too much to take one extra jump to avoid a system like, Nyx or Pyro or other places that we know there's a lot of dangerous things happening, you should take those measures. So there's things you can do, but ultimately it comes down to playing smart and making sure that you're not the easiest target around. It's kind of like that old adage, I don't need to be faster than the bear, I just need to be faster than you. If I'm a more prickly target than the other dude, I'm not getting messed with. Sean what Stone says, describe the dream ship for you. I cannot answer this question at all. Because my dream ship is going to be a combat ship. And based on what I've flown, I prefer the more lightweight, agile type fighters. To me, I think the Saber is going to be pretty damn close to that. That being said, I've really enjoyed flying the Vanguard as well, especially since the weapons and the shields have kind of gotten their rework and it's a little bit more, I don't know, it's better. But they're very different. So I don't think I necessarily have a dream ship. I think I'm going to love the Redeemer, but I haven't flown it yet, so I don't really know. Something combat-oriented that doesn't have a huge crew requirement is kind of where I'm focused on, and I think it's going to really vary based on the situation. Cartual may be perfect. I don't know. May not be. And who knows? Maybe I get into this game and collecting fuel is my favorite thing to do, and the Starfarer ends up being my favorite ship. So it's a really hard question to answer, but combat ship that's got... a combat ship. Bego says, I'm putting together a parts list and I want to know, do you have any frame rate issues with the 680 on Star Citizen? I have been more lucky than most as far as my Star Citizen frame rates go. Part of that's probably based on the fact that my i5 actually overclocks as high as it does, and I've been able to really maintain temperatures through my water cooling to this point. That being said, the 680, I find that I can play on kind of medium settings well. Sometimes I can bump it up to very high and it stutters a little bit, but sometimes the performance is better than on medium. So I would say a 680 long term will play the game on medium to low settings totally fine. There's optimization that needs to be done, but we'll just need to kind of see how that all works out in the long term. If you're planning on buying a 680, keep in mind there's not a lot of them around anymore, so it's probably going to be used. Zelnor Smith says, hi Youngblood, Zelnor here, hello. Just had a quick question about Star Citizen. If you could answer on your next AMA, that would be great. Saw your videos and it was free week. Played it, now I'm hooked. I need your help deciding. Basically, long question, wants to know between the Retaliator or the Harbinger. They're similar in that they're both torpedo boats. The Retaliator has a massive crew requirement in comparison to the Vanguard, if you want to work at full capacity. I say compared to the Vanguard. Well, yeah, that's right. So, Retaliator, you got the pilot, and you've got 5 turrets. So, if you want to be at total ass-kicking potential, you need 6 people. If you want to be at full ass-kicking potential on the Harbinger, you got the pilot and the turret gunner. You could add a third person to run like the seat and do like shields and stuff, but you could also do that in the Retaliator. So, let's say you really need 2. That is a big difference. And if you're hiring NPCs, that gets really costly. Or, just needing to have more people online. That's my biggest gripe with the Retaliator, is to max it out, you need a lot of people. The other thing is, the operating cost is going to be interesting, and for me, the final piece for that is, I hate not having control over my own weapons. So if I'm in a Retaliator, I am really in need of the people in my ship being competent gunners. So for me, I like the Harbinger. It's got a lot of forward-facing weaponry that I can control, and for me, that's the ship that I would recommend. Retaliator is going to probably be better against bigger targets. The clear sky torpedoes on it are tremendously large. But for overall versatility in combat alone, especially as like the missile boat type mentality, I think the Harbinger wins out in that regard. So that's it. We're at the 20-minute mark. I don't want to push it too much longer. As you've been able to see, I'm kind of continuing to crank these out. So if you've got questions, put them in the comments. I'll try to get to them as soon as possible. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys watching. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Oh, and one last thing. I don't know if I said it or not. I thought it. I'm MVP this week. So go me. Appreciate the support. There we go. There was a support question earlier. You guys have supported me. Now I'm MVP for the week. So that's great. That's a great honor. I'm thrilled about it. And I can't thank you guys enough for helping me get that. So that's officially it. Stay tuned for more. I'll catch you guys later. Take care.